Oh, okay. All right. Well, but then I said, okay, well, can I take other liberties too? So in I wrote this 3-part prose piece about firestorm evacuations.
Wow.
And in the first one, I used the letters once. And the second one, I used the letters, I think, twice.
Mhm.
And in the third one, I used them 3 times. You see, you know what I mean? So, yeah. So, and to do that, I highlighted all of the letters that I, in red to make sure that I could see them. But yeah, so since I was talking about 3 different episodes of evacuations, I kind of followed that when I was writing the prose pieces.
And were you making any kind of particular point in your essay? Was like there a thesis or main idea to it?
Well, it was a learning process because I did have to evacuate that many times.
Right.
And so as I progressed through them, I talked about what I learned from the initial evacuation, how I applied that to the second one, and then how I applied it to the third. In terms of the being in those locations near foothills where a stream came by and all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
So
That sounds powerful, Lucetta. That sounds powerful.
yeah, but it's, so it was all learning. At first I had 1 child, then I had 3, and then I had none. So it kind of progressed
Wow.
through my
Oh,
life. I mean, my children were gone, but so it was just my husband and I, but it was
okay.
all of these things that we did. And
Okay.
yeah,
Thank you
so
for sharing
yes,
that.
it was that, but I did it with 1, then 2, then 3.
Yeah, so you can see from these examples that people do different things with the form, and prose especially, since
Yeah,
prose is much longer. These are much longer pieces than the
long.
poems we
Yeah.
read.
Yeah.
And for me, for this brother, it allows the author to reflect upon the addiction that a brother was dealing with and that everyone in her family had. A form of addiction. So it was like a meditation on addiction
Right.
and the sort of chain of events that addiction can lead to, sad events like suicide.
Mhm.
Like, it was really sad, but I feel like the Abecedarian structure gave this essay, a kind of scaffolding to put the story on. That the restriction gave the author a way to connect and interconnect
Right.
these ideas. So in that way, I thought it was effective. Now, clearly you could write this without the Abecedarian. So in asking you to bring something today that was not an Abecedarian, my thought was you can take something that was not an Abecedarian and then try writing it as an Abecedarian and see what happens to the piece as you put it in a different frame. Anyone else have anything else to say about this essay?
The prose seems a bit harder than like the poetry, because the poetry was like you can have fragments and it seems more acceptable, which in prose sometimes you don't see that as much. But it kind of gave it, also helped with the subject matter as well, being that it was addiction and it is fragmented. So it really worked well for me, I thought. But I'm interested in seeing what I come up with because I'm not sure if I'm that talented.
Well, also, you're only going to have 10 minutes. I'm going to have you do two different prompts on 2 different totally different approaches and themes. And so keep in mind that you're only going to have 10 minutes. So there's a good chance you're not going to get through the whole alphabet, and you shouldn't even put pressure on yourself to try, I would say. you know, because I think it would be better to just enjoy and get as far as you do. Last week we had someone, Lynn, who only got up to C, right, in the poem. She only got up to the letter C, but what she had was very dense and detailed, and you know, so it's just about getting off to a start, understanding that you're probably not going to get to finish. However, that being said, if you're really on a roll after the first one and you don't want to do the second one, you just want to keep working on the first one, that would be fine. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen now, and thank Tim and Amy Joy for and Poets and Writers for having this workshop on Abecedarians, and you'll have these assignments, you know, in the shared document if you want to keep them, or if you want to save them, and if you want to continue to work on them. Okay, so. Whoops, wrong one. Excuse me. Okay. Seems to happen if I try to scroll up, then it goes out of the screen share. So hopefully this won't happen again. Yeah, it's happening. I don't know why it's doing that. Okay, got it. Okay, so the first prompt is to make a list of 3 people you miss, who they are or were, and what you miss most about them. You can do this in a notebook on a blank piece of paper, or in a file, a document on your screen. So just make that list. Underline the one that seems most compelling to you and put one of them in the chat. And if it's like a relative of yours, you could just say my uncle so-and-so, or if it's an ex-lover, you could say my ex-lover. And that's just in case anyone else wants to use one that isn't their own, you know, that wants to take one from someone else in the workshop. So we're gonna do that. And then the second thing we're going to do is make a list of 5 books, movies, TV shows, or songs you love, and underline the one that is most compelling to you and put that in the chat. So we're going to have 2 things to put in the chat. One person that you miss, and what you miss about them. One book, movie, TV show, or song, or any other kind of media that you find compelling, and put that in the chat. And then we're going to start a Prose Abecedarian on any one of those using the format A is for, B is for, either about the person you miss, or to begin to write a review of a book, movie, or song. So you have the choice, but I am asking you to use that format that we saw in the review, which is the A is for, B is for, C is for, D is for. So instead of starting each line with the word, you start it with that. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing now. So whenever you're ready, you could put in the chat your person, just with a little description of that person, and then your song, book, TV show, movie that that you feel strong about, that you might want to write a review of.
And both of these are 10 minutes? One
Are you
is,
just gonna pick one?
Oh, you're
You
gonna
just
pick
put-
one, okay.
Yeah, you're doing the
Okay.
brainstorming to give
Okay.
yourself a choice, right?
Okay,
I'm giving you choices here.
okay,
And you even can pick one that someone else put in there. That's why
Okay.
I have, you put them in, like last week, I ended up picking something that someone else came up with instead of mine. So sometimes when someone puts something in, it triggers it triggers an interest in you.
now
know?
this isn't including this isn't based on the photograph we bought.
No,
this-
that's gonna be
this
the
is just
second
one.
one.
Okay,
That's gonna be the
okay,
second.
okay,
This is
all right,
not based on the
great.
photograph, and this is not based on the thing you brought to work on. That's gonna be the second one. This is generating something totally new.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so, and we put it in chat.
Yeah,
Okay.
put it in chat.
Fine.
Okay, we've got some good ones here. I'm gonna read them. So, best friend for over 50 years, Stephen Lynn Anderson. Grandpa, my Aunt B, who was a funny lady. Book, The Candy House by Jennifer Egan. Anne of Green Gables book. Nina Simone's Mississippi. Goddamn Song and Artist. It Happened One Night movie. All Quiet on the Western Front, which is a book and a movie, right? BB, my maternal grandmother. Okay, thank you. Anyone still need to do that or we're good? Okay, so which one is calling out to you? Which one is calling out to you of what you came up with? Pick the one that you feel more compelled to write, and then gonna have 10 minutes to write an abecedarian about that person or about that music, movie, TV show. So if it's about a person, you would focus on what you miss about that person. What you miss most, what you remember about them, using the A is for, B is for. And if you're writing about a movie, a song, a book, you want to try to bring out the qualities of that movie, book, or song in your abecedarian. Okay, so 10 minutes. You can shut off your camera if you want and go off and do your writing for 10 minutes. I just put random generated words into the chat. You may want to use these words in what you're writing. No requirement, just they're available if you choose to use them. Solution, pain, note, theft, and squeeze. Okay, finish up the line you're on. Yeah, you can come back and unmute yourselves. What was that like?
I didn't finish.
No, I said you weren't gonna finish.
Yeah.
I mean, I only got to G, I think, in mine.
It was emotional. I picked the person, so it was maybe not the best one to pick for a workshop.
It was emotional, yeah. definitely.
Yeah.
I picked a person too. Yeah. Does
I
anyone,
picked like an art form or, art artifact, the movie I saw.
right?
Never read the book, but I saw the movie All Quiet on the Western Front. So, I wrote about that.
Great.
So it was more removed. It wasn't so emotional, I don't think, maybe as
Yeah.
writing about person.
I know, the two options were very different. One is much more emotional than the other. So I guess it's just a matter of what you were inspired to do tonight. We can hear them. I think we have time for that. So if anyone wants to, totally up to you if you want to share what you wrote.
I didn't write about a person because it like Chris was saying, it might have been difficult to really come up with something to write about my mom, and I probably wouldn't have finished. So I wrote about Star Wars,
Great. And you
which
used-
are like my trilogy. I love the first movies. I have the collection.
And when you say first, do you mean the one that's called A New Hope, that's actually the fourth one, or do you mean the actual?
No,
first?
I mean the originals from 1977.
Okay, so that's number 4 now. That's not, it was the
Well,
original.
it'll
now-
always be number one for me.
Okay. But did you write in the A is for, B is for, C is for?
Yes.
Okay, let's
Mhm.
hear it. Go if you want to.
Well, I don't want to, if anybody else wants to.
Well, we have time to hear from whoever wants to.
Okay, I think it's a little silly, but I did write something. So it's the Star Wars. And I can't understand half of my written handwriting.
Okay.
I'll just skip some. So A is for the anticipation of what will happen next. B is for the brilliance of putting together the trilogy. C is for the cosmic experience and images. D is for the dark and Death Star. E is for energy and exploration. F is for fear and future and fantasy. And G is for galaxies that we can explore. H is for human perseverance. I is for intellect, interstellar agreements. J is for judgment of right and justice. K is for killings and keepers. L is for the lightsaber and lightning. M, mankind and monsters. N is for new things, ideas and creatures. And O is for optimism and objects. And P is for possibility and peace. And Q is for quasars and quantum leaps. And R is for reality that makes believe, reality that we make believe. And T is for treaties or agreements that exist now and in the future. And I wanted to say, and are broken. And S is for space and ships and submarines. And U is for the universe, both multiples. And V is for the vastness of space. And W, a world of possibilities. And then I got to X and got stuck with. I used all the E words that sound like
Extraterrestrial, how about that?
right, extraterrestrial and exotic. But I know they're not conforming to the.
Okay, thank you, that was great, thanks a lot.
Welcome.
Anyone else?
I can go.
Okay,
I didn't follow the rules exactly, only because it just came out this way, so I wasn't trying to disregard rules.
it's okay, like I said, do what works for you.
A is for the ache that I still feel in my chest, like a cracked rib, waiting for it to knit itself. Because I never thought my grandmother dying someday would come as a shock to my heart. Can it really be that somewhere in me I was that naive that I thought death would come for BB and I would just live my life like the ground under my feet wasn't ripped? Even now, 10 years and almost 2 months, that lump in my throat kind of feeling, pain washes over me. G is for gardening. It wasn't like she gardened a whole lot, but it's where I remember her. Shelling peas, picking apples, digging up green onions. Sometimes she would drop a pea in our mouths, and I can still taste that earthiness on my tongue. I sometimes worry if I'm remembering her correctly, is this how she wants to be remembered? J is for Jagvinder, a name she only called me teasingly because it wasn't the name that fit me. Chris was meant for me, Bibi said, and when Punjabi tongues tripped or slipped on these 4 letters, she was confident in saying my name. L is for the loneliness I never felt before and only seem to put on now. Mourning has come with costs, and that's as far as I got with M.
Amazing. So beautiful. And I feel like this, you got to the details and nuances, right? That show us what she was like, don't only tell us, but actually show us. And remember from last week that we tried to appeal to the senses? Feel like you did that. Yeah. So I didn't say it tonight, but as always, if you can appeal to the senses, if you can write not only for the visual, but sound, smell, touch, taste. Humans react to that, and it just it draws us right in, and it brings out elements that are very powerful. So thank you. I hope you'll finish that. It's such a nice tribute. Anyone else? Anyone else want to read theirs or decline? Tim or Lizetta?
Oh, well, I didn't finish mine.
Okay. It's okay. You don't have to have finished it. You could just read what you have, or if you don't want to, that's okay too.
I'll just read a few lines then.
Few lines. Okay.
A is for Angus, a dairyman. I never knew. B is for, but he was a big man with a stern gaze. C is for country. C is for the country home that he built. D is for the dairy he opened in 1907. E is for everything he produced and took to market. F is for the farming. F is for the farm that had fruit and nut trees. G is for gathering corn from the fields. H is for hunting and bringing home ducks for breakfast. I is for his independent thinking. J is for juggling family life with work. K is for keeping his family together. L is for the lazy days of summer. I'll skip him. N is for never giving up. O is for organizing his saved seeds for the next planting. And that's kind of where I went awry and kind of just have little
Yeah.
words here.
I feel like
Yes.
it has potential, like you could go over one line and like you could make it more like an essay. You know, in other words, say a little bit more about each one. before
Yeah.
you switch. If you continue to work on it, that's, you know, I would say, and that goes for yours too, like you can make the lines longer if you consider this an essay instead of like a poem. You can elaborate and bring out more detail on that person, you know, before you come to the next letter. It's just a thought.
Well, no, I've written about him before, but this was just, I was trying to get
Right.
thinking of
But I'm just saying,
one little
you can
picture.
you can add more detail
Yeah.
about the seeds and the farm and
Uh-huh.
what it meant to him, and even if you never met him, what you imagined it to be. You know, I think it's
Mhm.
rich. It's rich material,
Mhm.
you know? So you don't have to feel like you have to go to the next letter that fast, right? When it's an essay, I think you can linger. And then once you have the letter, you don't have to use that letter anymore. You can just kind of go off
Uh-huh.
into whatever comes. But if you want, you could have multiple words with the letter for like alliteration or just the way it sounds. You know, it's just a possibility. So just if you pick up and continue to work on these after tonight, those are just some thoughts I have that you could let yourself have the space, and there won't be any time constraint on you. And then you can just see how far you can go with these characters, these
Yeah.
people, right? These people that meant a lot to you, or that you have such interesting details about these people. So just a thought. Tim, did you want to read yours, or should we just move on?
You can move on. I mean,
Okay.
apart from like reading anything, which I'll spare you all, but I think that what I've learned this past week, especially with the prose focus, is that the first letter of each line does not have to be necessarily, in order. I mean, there's an order involved, but you can shift the lines around so that it's not as obvious. So it's like you have this constraint, right, where you try and think of things in terms of each of the letters of the alphabet, but they don't necessarily have to line up where A, B, C, D, E, F is on the left margin, right?
No,
That's
it
wrong.
depends what you want. Like when I write Abecedarian, I want people to know that it's an
Sure.
Abecedarian. And I'll even call the name of the piece like Abecedarian, and then I give the name of the piece. And for me, it's mostly been poem so far, not prose. So I want the letters to line up because I want to emphasize that. But certainly we saw examples where people didn't do that. So
Right. Your second example, from the reading was
yeah.
like that.
So really, yes. So really, you as the writer, as the creator, you can always do what you want. So, you're the one who has the final say in how you want to present your material. So what I'm trying to do here is just give you different options and show you different examples. So the final one for tonight, again, you're going to have a choice. Okay, so take out the piece of writing you brought to work on. If you don't have one or want to start something new, that is fine too. So about the piece you brought, you'll be answering this question by free writing. What do I want to know more about in this piece? How can I appeal to the senses? So whatever it is, you would just make some notes about what you wanted to know, where you wanted to go with this piece. If there's some way you can appeal to the senses more in this piece. Okay, so that's for people that want to do that. Then for people that maybe don't want to do that, you can take the photo you brought and in your notebook or blank page, free write about one person. Sorry, this is, it should say in this photo. That's assuming there's people in the photo. If you brought a nature photo or a scenic photo, then I would answer this one. What do you need to find out about this place? And if it's people or, you know, at least one person, what do you notice most about this photo? And also, what do you need to find out about this person? Okay, so in the interest of time, I'd say do either the one on the piece of writing you brought or do the one on the photograph. But then you're gonna see that when you do your prose abecedarian, you can rewrite the piece you brought with you using any length line or number of lines. You may incorporate the photo into your revision by adding information, a character, or a new scene that the photo evokes, or write a prose abecedarian based on what you realized or what you want to explore about the photo you brought. So, any questions about this? And I know it's a little confusing, or it's a little complicated. Okay, so first thing you want to do is, if you want to work on the piece you brought in your notebook or on your page, free write, what do I want to know more about in this piece? And how can I appeal to the senses? Okay, and if you want to do the photograph, then in your notebook, write, here's what I notice about this photograph, and here's what I need to find out. Okay, so I'm going to give you a few minutes to just get that down. You don't have to share this in the chat. We're not going to share it in the chat. Okay, does everybody have something? Any questions?
Yes, I have something.
Okay, any questions about what you're doing? Everyone's clear? Okay, great. Okay, so take 10 minutes now to write your prose abecedarian, reworking the piece you brought, adding some depth to it, that appeals to the senses, and taking it deeper into whatever you decided you want to do with it. And if you want to incorporate the photo material, do that. Or just work with the photo and write an abecedarian that delves into what the photo is evoking for you, and what you want to say about it. Using the abecedarian form. There's no requirements on what type, of abecedarian, just alphabetical order. Okay, so I'll see you in about 10 minutes. And I'm not going to do the random word generator for this one. Okay, finish the line you're working on. Okay. How is that for everybody? Can unmute yourselves.
it was a little bit easier in this sense because I already had a piece to start with. So it didn't feel like as floundering as like when you have something brand new, you're just kind of like,
Yeah.
oh, where to go?
Yeah. So, which one did you do?
I did a short story that I kind of had like a flash fiction that I kind of didn't know where else I'm going to go with it. So I thought, oh, maybe I'll just try doing this and see if any sort of ideas come through that way, having that constraint of adding more to it and maybe taking some stuff away.
And do you feel that that helped the Abecedarian approach?
Yeah, because it actually gave me more details. Like, I'm not sure if I'll keep them all, but I just loved how it added a little bit because I did have to get some more letters to go in the order. So, yeah, I think overall, and especially the question you had given us previously to kind of be like, where do I want to go with this? And that had been one of my things. I wanted to make the setting and the characters kind of come to life without putting too much into it.
Fantastic. So we'll hear it maybe in a little bit. I just want people to share their process if they feel like talking about what the process was like for you this time. Anyone want to talk about the process? You can unmute.
It was a little harder. I don't know. I found this one harder. Maybe because I was just concentrating so hard on trying to describe the image. I used a picture. I posted it in the chat. It was a picture I took yesterday, and I take a lot of photos.
It's of a little girl. It's
Yeah, well, it's of a little, it's the wall at Mon Amour, and I found it a little fascinating because there were just two images that
Yeah,
have something
yeah,
in there,
yeah,
and the rest of it is a blank picture
Yeah.
frames on
right.
the walls. So just, but it was kind of, the exercise was inspiring, and I wanted to choose another picture, but I didn't
So
I didn't
when
think
you-
I had enough.
When you
but-
did the free write on what you want to know about this, did that help you to come up with ideas?
A little bit, yeah. Like I wanted to know who designed it, the wall. Why did they, decide to put, those empty frames and have two frames that had something in them, And why did they choose, one was a photograph of, a little girl, and the other is like some greenery on one of the frames. So yeah, it was helpful.
Okay. And then did the Abecedarian form also feel like a good structure to explore the questions you had?
Well, no.
Oh, okay.
I think I could probably write it. I think I might just write it as a prose
Right.
and then maybe insert the Abecedarian later because the questions were coming faster than I could
Yeah.
put them into,
Yeah,
corral them into letters.
yeah.
Yeah.
Lizetta, how was the process for you?
Well, I looked at the picture and I thought I had already written something.
Okay.
So, but I looked at the picture and found some things in there too. So, I'll probably rewrite what I've done with that picture. Because I tend to tell stories in my writing. So it's always storytelling. So then, and then I went back to what I had written, about the evacuation and
good.
to check to see if I had any sensory
Oh, yeah.
elements in there, and I did. So
Yeah, because I would think evacuation would be a great subject for sensory detail.
yeah.
Like
So
what were you breathing? What was your fear? How did you feel the fear in your body? Where did
Right.
you, that kind of thing.
yeah.
Yeah. Great, thank you. Tim, what was the process like for you?
Well, like a lot of these exercises, I'm thinking of the rough drafts series that used to be like here in Riverdale at Ambil Bach, where we were supposed to write flash fiction and ended up always writing a poem. So even with these constraints, I ended up writing poems. I write prose all day, like at my job, so. you know.
But this is a chance to let your creativity take over and, you know, probably the prose you write has a certain, you know, restriction or tone or.
Boredom factor.
Yeah, I did trade journalism. One of my first jobs was trade journalism, and I know what it's like. I'm not saying that's what you do, because I think you're in financial services. But I remember when I had to write in a certain way for a certain audience, and hopefully this kind of thing gets you out of that and lets you tap into your creative source without those rules, you know, with rules.
For sure.
Yeah, so that's good. I want to talk a little bit about my process for this. So I had done a prompt to a picture, and I had written some stuff about the picture that I was going to use in the fiction I'm working on right now, which is a novella, a shorter novel. And so what I did tonight was I took that raw material and I imposed the Abecedarian onto it. And I think it made it so much better. I just feel like it helped me to put a structure onto the haphazard sort of notes I had taken that the picture had generated. So so basically I took a prompt from a picture and then I imposed this new prompt onto it. And I like what I did so far. I didn't get very far, but I like the direction it went in. So so I'm glad, you know, that I tried this and see where it took me. Okay, who would like to read theirs?
I can be brave and go first. And I only got to I. After the first football game, they went and sat at the dining room table. There was a quiet murmur that devoured the room. Please pass the potatoes. I talked to Aunt Marge and her hip surgery went well. Cousin Dave got a promotion, so we'll be in Texas now. Beside my grandparents' hand carved table was another table they bought at a yard sale when their children started to have their own kids. Chairs no longer could be crammed in the big table, so here I was sitting at the children's table at 17 with most of the kids 13 and under. During a lull in small talk, all you could hear was chewing, gulps of liquid, and bickering among the smaller kids. Everyone, those that knew and didn't know, seemed to absorb the haunting chill, or maybe it was a nervous energy. For a second, I was lost in my thoughts when the nervous chatter started up again. All the news was neutral. Occasionally, someone would mention the weather like salacious gossip. The sun peeked throughout the windows, just waking up your Uncle Daryl and I. It was really too much. Grandpa cleared his throat. The phlegm seemed to move in his chest. I could see the sweat on my dad's receding hairline, and my mother's lips disappeared into her frown. My Aunt Marcy kept straightening her napkin like it was a fussy toddler on her lap. Even though she was a nervous one, she would elbow her husband and shush him. He, in turn, would growl while still shoveling his food in. One of the kids, an offspring of one of the girl cousins, spilled her juice with a hard plastic cup, clanging on the hard wooden floor. It woke those of the dining room up from a spell, my grandma clutching her cross, saying, "Dear Lord," while some of the men yelling and cursing with being startled. 3 of the kids started crying. I stood up and said, "I'm pregnant, not charged with murder." One of my uncles cleared his throat and said, "Well, when you come back to Texas, you might be." And that's as far as I got.
Oh, God. Oh, great. Wonderful.
Yeah.
The second half had so much detail that appealed to the senses, like the sweat on the hairline and the juice spilled. But when you first started and you were sitting at the table with all the little kids, I would have liked to hear what they were talking about, or what the speaker was feeling, and how the speaker felt about that. Because sometimes people feel the kids' table is the best place to be, you know. So like you did in the second half, maybe if you revise this, put some dialogue maybe in the first half. I would like to hear dialogue there. I forgot to say that, but you know, of course, in an Abecedarian prose piece, if it's fiction or prose poem, you can have dialogue. And dialogue is a great, it's a great element in any kind of creative writing, especially prose. You know, you do see it in poetry sometimes, but it's an absolute necessity, let's say, in creative nonfiction, memoir, and fiction writing. So let that dialogue rip. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for all the feedback as well. That'll be really helpful when I go back. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. And I write flash fiction. I also write long stuff. So sometimes you can't tell what something is when you're first writing it, you know? So I always would say, don't censor yourself and don't decide in advance if it's, you know, short, long, medium, just write the story, and then you can always make a decision about the form and the length later on, you know? But I mean, some people only write short pieces or long pieces, but I write all different length ones, and I never know really in advance how it's gonna fall. So, okay, who else would like to share?
All right, read mine. This is called Evacuation 1. After a busy day, that night in Santa Barbara, I finally had a chance to get into a steamy bath, lay back my head, and sink into the bubbles. Miles was asleep in his crib. Willie was in the living room working on his book, and all was well in our neighborhood. Dreaming of what I'd do next with my students at the Eastside Art Center, the smell of smoke interrupted me. It was filtering into the bathroom. "I smell smoke," I yelled. "Grab Miles." Willie smelled it too, and he hurried toward Miles's crib. Whisking him into his arms. In an instant, I was out of the tub, nervously jockeying to find my clothes and shoes. We looked out of our front window and saw a bright orange line along the foothills where the knotty pine and chaparral grew. Lindsay, our neighbor, had a water hose watering down her roof, while others like Mr. Davis watched the fire line. Then suddenly we noticed cars coming out of the hills, filling up our street. Then we heard loud sounds. Of a police bullhorn. "Evacuate, evacuate, evacuate." I quickly wrapped Miles in a blanket while Willie grabbed our mortgage files, locked the door, and ran down the front steps to our car. Luckily, we lived on the corner, so we could quickly turn into the long line of traffic heading down the hill. The cars were bumper to bumper, and we sat waiting our turn. Unbridled horses galloped down the hill, weaving in and out of the cars, while others vaulted over flower beds and hedges. Ranchers had let their horses loose to save their lives from the fire. I didn't see any wranglers or horse keepers. It seemed that the horses were on their own. I looked back, and the fire had jumped the dry edges of Foothill Road and was approaching my neighborhood. In the traffic, I saw our neighbor Xavier and asked him about our street. He said, "Mr. Peterson's roof is on fire." Mr. Peterson lived across the street from us. Descending the hill, we heard people yelling, looking for their pets. At the bottom, we saw ranchers rounding up the horses. If they had stayed at the ranches, they would have had zero chance of surviving. We drove to Greg and Sharon's home downtown and slept on their sofa that night. The next morning, we returned to our house, but not before seeing the devastation of the fire wreck on the foothills and some of our neighbors. They lost their homes, yet our house was smoky, but still standing.
Wow. Really
So
good
that's the evacuation plan.
description. Very great description, and I could see it and smell it and hear it. I love the part about the horses. That was really vivid. Did you use Abecedarian at all in there?
Yeah,
Okay.
I did. It was woven in there.
So it was multiple lines on one letter, and then you
Yeah.
eventually would get to the next one. How far did you get on that?
I got to zero. We're zero chance of
Oh,
surviving.
0. Okay,
And Xavier and yelling
Oh,
and
wow.
bridled and vaulted and all those
but it
things.
doesn't necessarily start the line. It's just embedded in the prose, or
It's now this one is embedded in there.
okay,
Mhm.
great. And so that was helpful then to have that, have the alphabet words have to be used.
Well, yeah, because I think I made it more descriptive because I had to do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just one comment that I have early on, when you had someone saying, you had someone saying there's smoke, and then you had someone speak, I smell smoke. I don't think you need it twice. I think just I smell smoke is stronger
Mhm.
than you saying there was smoke. The I smell smoke is, is a more powerful expression
Mhm.
of that. So maybe cut the first one.
Okay. All right.
Um,
Okay.
Yeah, so Betty wrote a very nice comment. She said it pulled you in, anticipation was present, to you, the reader wanted to know what came next. And yeah, you did a really great job of building that, of building the tension and the sense of uncontrol and chaos that fire brings. And it spoke to me personally because I had family that lived in Santa Barbara as well.
Uh-huh.
And I know there's always that danger of the fires in California and other
Right.
parts of the West. So, you said this is number 1, so it's really interesting that you're doing multiple evacuations.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
yeah, people think you're crazy because you keep going back to foothills.
Are you
Yeah.
there now?
No, I'm
Okay.
not. My last one was I was in Oakland for the firestorm, and then Santa Rosa had the Tubbs fire, which really was the largest fire in the state ever. And a lot of people died. Yeah, lost their lives and a lot of property gone.
Well, there's a potential for a whole collection of this stuff. I mean, I wrote a book about
Oh yeah, no,
9/11.
it keeps happening. Yeah, no, it keeps
I
happening.
wrote a book about 9/11 and Mount St. Helens eruption. I juxtaposed the two. And,
Yeah.
and I did research as well, and it so as horrible as these things are, there's something healing about writing about it, and there's insight, right, that you can have by writing and reflecting on it. It actually,
Yeah, because I said, well, people will think I'm crazy that we kept going back to areas like this. But the last place we had a creek in the back and a creek in the front. But that's nothing for a fire that jumps
know.
over.
But
Yeah.
people love certain places, and it's hard
Yeah.
for them to leave, even if they know they
Yeah.
should.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
thanks for sharing that with us.
Sure. Yeah.
Does anybody else want to read theirs? Betty, Tim, you're good, or you want to read yours?
I'd like to hear the one you changed, Cheryl.
Well, I didn't get very far. It's,
I'd like to hear that one.
okay, well, it's basically also a scene that's in the mid, like towards the end of a novella I'm writing, so you won't know what it's about at all. But okay, I'll read it if you want. Okay. Amelia's sister Angela sat with her legs splayed out on the black vinyl sofa with a black makeup around her eyes like horrid daisies. Amelia had the same circles around her eyes. Lily thought they looked high. Then the sister spoke energetically with a screechy tone like some odd Aussie bird, the kookaburra. Fucking hell, she said. Stop staring at me. I'm here for my baby sisters who's going to have a baby. She kicked her legs. Holy shit. Shut up, Angie, yelled Amelia. Can't you give it a rest? Idiot, thought Lily. She's smoking right under the no smoking sign. I doubt Edgar heard. Does Magnus even know she's pregnant? Just dance, won't you, said and Hammer did. He stood and struck a stiff pose in his dark suit, his bow tie kind of kinky, is what Edgar said, recognizing his friend dressed as a man. You smell like aftershave. You're not going to know what this is doing, but anyway.
I liked it.
Yeah.
I thought it was really good. I'm excited to hear it. Yeah.
It's at a party. It's a party scene, which
Yeah.
is always hard.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah.
I like what, smoking right under the no smoking sign. How many times have we seen people doing that? Yeah, that's a familiar. It had the familiar in it. I like it.
Well, and I got the image of the two women with the daisies, like painted black daisies around their eyes from a photograph that someone else posted in a workshop I was taking that Ann did. And so, so that's how kind of like you can use photographs to go into your story and take you in a place. I never would have put that in.
Mm.
See the photograph, I never would have thought. And the sister was not even in this story to begin with. I just put her in because there were two women sitting in this scene and I just added a sister. So that's the whole thing for me, is like in drafting, when you're drafting, like surprising yourself, being surprised and not being sure where something is going, but that sometimes then you get stuff that you wouldn't normally get on your own, which is why I love prompts. So that's it for tonight. I hope you found this helpful and that you'll keep working on whatever you generated here. And I'll put today's worksheet into the shared, shared documents, so you can see. You could see those assignments again and do them if you want. I know they were a little complicated and you didn't have a lot of time, but you can always do them on your own whenever you have time and keep it going. So
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, I totally enjoyed it. I'll keep doing it myself. Yeah.
yay, and you
To
got
really-
great stuff.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
got great stuff, and I really think that this Abecedarian structure I found that it's amazing how it just can give you better way to go about things than
Yeah, no, it's really, yeah.
I don't know, for some reason for me it just clicked, and that's why I wanted to do this workshop, because I found it recently and it just seems to be good for me, where some other forms aren't necessarily good for me. There are millions of different poetic forms, for example. There's lots of different structures out there. And I guess we have to sort of find what works for us, but we won't know if we don't try.
Right,
So,
yeah.
Yes.
well, thanks to Tim and Amy Joy again for making this possible. And maybe one of these days I'll see you up in the Bronx, those of you who are up there.
Yeah, thanks, Cheryl, for doing these workshops. It's been great. everybody's enjoyed them. I surely have. I didn't necessarily follow the guidelines, I kind of went my own way, but that's kind of been my whole problem in life. Anyhow, I want to introduce as well Amy Joy Roboto, who joined. She had a conflicting meeting, but she just joined. She's the co-host of Art in the Basin and kind of the organizer of this workshop. And just want to mention it will be our 6th anniversary in April, and we have some really nice readings and events set up for that, and also watch our space for future workshops, because we want to continue doing workshops in addition to the reading series, or the open mic, whatever performance, spoken word, music kind of thing that we do.
That's
Thank-
great that you do music too.
Thank you so much, Tim and Cheryl. This was very fulfilling. Honestly, I'm glad this is now part of my writing toolkit. Cheryl, you opened my eyes to a new world of writing. And everyone, thank you for participating and sharing your beautiful work with us. So have a good night.
Good
Good night.
everyone.
Thank you,
Dr.
Cheryl.
Ryan.
Thanks, Tim, and
Stay in touch.
everyone.
Thank
Stay in
you.
touch.
Care.
Tell me what you're doing. Keep in touch. Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey.
Sorry, it got muted there. I about hit like leave meeting for all, but so yeah, I'm glad you were able to join us. It was pretty good, I mean, I got some writing out of it. The last thing, I mean, she had us sort of wanting to do this stuff, and a couple other people did really great at it, but I just wrote like a stupid poem. So
I know it's
didn't-
really hard for me to write prose. I keep wanting to go back to poetry.
well, a couple of the people had really cool stuff. I mean, that they read that was just very detailed and just flowed, and I don't know.
I was
it
really trying hard to hear the Abecedarian, and
yeah.
that's
I
how, like,
actually could hear it.
weaved
I could
it
actually hear it.
seamless.
Well, I could hear it, but yeah, you're right. It was seamless. It's sort of like it kind of got buried into it. That was sort of the point I made, I think, before you joined. It's like, well, it doesn't necessarily have to be ABCD on the left margin. You can kind of shift the lines around where maybe the C is in the middle of the line or something, you know what I mean? Or the D is, at the end of the line, you don't have
I was
to
thinking of how
do
it
it that
did
way.
look structurally. Like
Yeah.
I was just putting A through Z on the side and then figuring out, how to run the sentence, or
Mm.
I don't know. It was challenging. So I'm glad
Yeah,
people.
no, definitely. Yeah, I mean, the people that attended really kind of ran with it, I have to say.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's end this meeting. Thanks everyone for watching us on YouTube. Keep watching us and get some awesome writing skills. Thank you,
Talk to you
Tim.
later. Thanks, Amy. Glad to see you.